Now from Andrew McCabe. He's a former FBI deputy director. Andrew, what is your reaction to this new evidence?
Yeah, it's a remarkable series of images. The still images are much better than I expected. There's a lot of detail in the images of the clothing and the gloves and all this stuff that by themselves would not mean much, but when you put them all together, might very well inspire someone who actually knows this person to say, hey, I know who that is. But then when you one, first of all, who was ever trained to carry a gun. No person with law enforcement or military training would ever carry a firearm in a holster like that, right where that is at this almost the center of his body hanging off of his belt there. It's just like not very tactically sound for a lot of reasons. His approach to the house, it's not particularly furtive or concerned. He just kind of walks up with his head bent towards the ground, obviously to avoid being seen. You then see him use his hand like he is in that video right there to kind of cup over the lens of the camera to keep it from getting the close up of his face, which we get eventually anyway. So even here where he turns around, he's looking for something on the floor that he can use. He doesn't seem to be in a rush. He never looks out towards the street. He doesn't seem to be concerned that anyone sees him or what he's doing. It's really remarkable. It's kind of not what you think about when you think about an executed kidnapping. Usually it's more than one person that's engaged in trying to take someone out of a residence. Here you have, this image anyway, it's just one person. Maybe there are others, we don't know. But yeah, it's very odd. This person does not look like they're not moving with a purpose, as we say in law enforcement.
Yeah, also strange. I mean, using foliage to cover up a camera lens, you would think, Andy, I'm no law enforcement expert here, but if someone had cased this house and thought there was a camera they were going to have to obstruct, that they would bring something to obstruct it, not go trying to kind of improvise there with something from the lawn. It's really interesting what you're saying about the gun. I am curious, is people are going to be looking at this, okay? And they're going to be thinking about whether it's anyone they know. Is there something that you think they should be thinking about in particular that may not occur to them? What would you prompt them to be looking at here?
Yeah, so it's what you want to look at are things that seem totally normal, prosaic details that otherwise, they don't shout out kidnapper at you. But these are the things that could identify this person, right? So, and also let's keep in mind that the perception of color is off here because this is obviously a night, a camera that's equipped to work at night. So everything is reduced to grayscale. So we can't speak conclusively about color, but he's wearing some sort of a sweatshirt or a jacket that has reflective tape on either side of the center zipper that goes down the middle. That jacket also appears to have some darker trim that comes across horizontally at chest level. You can see it well in that photograph. He's wearing black nitrile gloves. Now those are readily available in lots of different places, but still it's interesting that he's wearing them. You see there in his wrist, again, there's another strip of material around the cuff of the jacket that is reflective at night. So these are all things that someone who lives with him or near him or, does laundry with him might notice as some piece of clothing they've seen before. The ski mask is like really old school, like kind of knit ski mask. You don't even see those things like out skiing anymore. It also occurs to me that in the next photo, one of the other photographs, not this one with the hand close up, but the other one, if you look just under his nose there in that photograph, you can see what appears to be a mustache underneath that mask. So I think it's highly probable that this person also has facial hair, at least to include a mustache, maybe more than that. So it's those kind of details that, again, individually don't mean anything, but when you put them all together, if you know this person, you might that might jog your ability to identify him and provide that information to the authorities.
And the hope is that that will soon happen. Let's go now to Jake Tapper and Ed Lavandera, who are in Tucson for us. Jake?
So the images are striking and startling, and it is important to remember that the arched doorway right there is where all of these images are from. Presumably, this individual walked up the driveway, which is the road that you see right in the foreground there behind the individual. And all of this taken together is a remarkable amount of information about this person who carried out this horrific act of abducting Nancy Guthrie. And just to walk back, we're on the 10th day now of this disappearance, and there has been very little information that the Guthrie family, the FBI, and the Pima County Sheriff have been able to provide to the public. But they now have this font of information in terms of how the individual walks, how this individual is built, what the individual was wearing that night, why there are questions certainly about was he or she trying to avoid the camera when they walked up. And as Brianna, as you've raised, if they knew there was a camera, why did they then have to use the leaves? Do you have the leaves? Yeah. Ed will show you the leaves that they were using, this individual was using to try to...
This is like typical shrubbery that is around here. There are a couple different other varieties, but, you know, this is a little, probably similar. I'll walk back over there and get a better vantage point, but I think this is probably pretty similar to what that guy picked up.
He or she comes with a full winter face mask, comes with gloves. Very little of his or her face is visible. Presumably it's a man, although we don't. The law enforcement has not ruled anything out as of now. And this is really the biggest break in the case so far. There has been so little reason for hope as of now. The 3 videos that the Guthrie family delivered were aimed at the kidnappers. It is unclear if the person that put the ransom notes together and sent them to law enforcement, whether that is legitimate. And then yesterday, of course, Savannah Guthrie with that heartfelt plea, thanking people for their support, thanking them for their prayers, but requesting tips, requesting anything that you might have, suggesting that, in fact, a break is needed in the case. And law enforcement, the FBI, and working with partners, presumably with Nest Camera and others, was able to get some of this footage, even though presumably it was thought to have been lost when the individual took that one Nest camera from the porch.
Yeah, and there's other cameras on the property, presumably inside as well. You have to think, Jake, that they're probably doing similar work with, you know, if that camera captured that, the cameras inside, if there are inside, or somewhere else might have caught something else, so they continue to work toward that. And I also think, and we do know from talking to investigators throughout the week and neighbors around here, we do know that there has been a great deal of canvassing this area, recanvassing this area. You know, it takes depending on which path you come into onto this particular street, it can take a mile, mile and a half to get out onto the main roads around here. But presumably, whoever this person is, probably dressed like this at home and then drove into the neighborhood. Let's presume that. So maybe someone driving around at 1 a.m., they see some, you know, they're at a red light, they look over and they see some guy like, why is this guy dressed with this jacket and black gloves, you know, on a steering wheel? So maybe this is the thing that jogs the memory or says, hey, I saw a guy at the intersection of X and Y and you should check out. And that maybe leads them to another video clue somewhere around the city, which we do know that investigators have been going to convenience stores in the area. They have been combing and knocking on doors, asking people to check cameras in a lot of different places. It's almost impossible to keep up with how many places they've been to, but that work continues.
And the Nest cameras from this house are so important because most of the other houses have so much shrubbery or foliage blocking images with the house right across the street. I can barely even see the house behind the cameraman here because there's so much in terms of trees and bushes. So even if they had 30 Ring cameras, Nest cameras, they wouldn't necessarily have gotten any images. So the fact that they were able to recover, the FBI working with private partners, working with Nest Camera and others, it's just remarkable work. And as we've noted, Brianna and Boris, there have been major breaks in cases and suspects apprehended with less information than this when it comes to Luigi Mangione, when it comes to the individual charged in the assassination of Charlie Kirk.